Buying a home is one of, if not the most expensive purchases a person or family makes in their entire lifetime. With that being said, the last thing you want to do is make a tragic mistake when buying this home. The difficult part is knowing what to put in the contract, how much earnest money to put, what contingencies are needed, what inspections are needed for the home you are considering, figure out where the lot lines are and if they match up, or could that be a problem down the road? Do you have a storm shelter area? Does the foundation have any potential issues? Where are the floodplains? What is staying? What is not staying with the home? And the list goes on and on and on. Well, in this video, we're gonna go over the top 7 tragic mistakes you must avoid if you want to buy a home in the great state of Iowa. Number 1, know how much earnest money to give and what it is. Let's start with what earnest money is, and it is a good faith deposit that you put into an escrow account held typically by the listing agents in Iowa after an accepted offer. One way to get it back is if you perform all the duties of the contract you signed, or if one of the contingencies we talk about next makes it clear you get the earnest money back. If anything is unclear, then there can be a dispute, and if that dispute happens, the earnest money will stay in the escrow account and it will be taken to the next step in the legal process in the dispute. Now, if the buyer backs out for a reason outside of contingencies, then the seller would keep that money for taking their home off the market. There is no rule to how much earnest money you need to put on a contract, but if you put $1, for example, the seller knows you don't care about the earnest money and your offer will look much less serious than if you put around 1% of the purchase price in for the amount of earnest money. For example, if you put an offer on a $250,000 home and put $2,500 in on earnest money on your offer, it will look a lot better than $1. It also depends on how competitive the home is for how much earnest money to put. If it is a home with multiple offers, 1% is going to be a minimum. And I have had clients put up to 3% of the purchase price for earnest money in those situations. If the home has no other parties to compete with, a $500 to $1,000 earnest money amount more than likely would be sufficient. It's still probably a little bit low. Number 2, make sure you have all the proper contingencies in place and make sure they are clear. The obvious contingencies are inspections and financing that most all contracts have unless you are paying cash. These contingencies allow for you to get your earnest money back, which we explained in the first mistake to avoid. With inspections, if you choose to do them, which I highly recommend you have performed, in the purchase contract we use, it stipulates inspection negotiations around 4 categories, and that is number 1, safety, number 2, health, number 3, structural, and number 4, mechanical. If any of those categories the seller will not repair or replace, then you have the grounds to get that earnest money back and continue your home search. The financing contingency with lending will be subject to an appraisal being done, and they have to approve you for the loan. This is why having a good loan officer is so important, so you know all the I's are dotted and the T's are getting crossed. If for some reason your financing falls apart, you would have grounds to get your earnest money back. There can be many other contingencies, and we can't go over every one of those as they are different for different homes. A few other contingencies that can be added are contingent on the buyer's home being sold. Contingent on seeing the home in person is one I have seen multiple times for someone that is an out-of-state client. Another one is contingent on the seller's finding suitable housing is one that a buyer must be aware of, as they can't move in until that person finds suitable housing. Contingencies are an important part of the home buying process to know, or have an agent who can explain your options. Plus, you need to add in at the end of any added contingencies that the contract is null and void with the earnest money returning back to the buyer. If this is not added, it can get gray, and there is no place for gray in a real estate contract. Number 3, inspections are a huge deal in any state, and Iowa is not exempt from this. Inspections that are most common, depending on the home you are looking at, are: number 1, the whole property inspection checks most all the home rather than radon, sewer systems, wells, wood destroying insects, and septic tanks. The whole property will go over the plumbing, electrical, insulation, roof, siding, grading of the home, mechanicals, etc., etc. The radon test is another inspection needed if a radon mitigation system is not installed. Radon is a natural gas that is detrimental to people's health if it tests over 4 picocuries per liter. The radon inspection goes like this. A machine is put in the home to check for 48 hours and test to see if it is either above or below that 4.0 mark and is considered safe or not. Sewer line inspection is up next, and this is for anything without a septic system. This inspection will be done by what is called a snake that shoots a video of the entire sewer line. If there are any problems at all, it will pick it up, and then negotiations for any repairs are needed to start right then. Wood destroying insect inspection is needed for most all homes, as we have termites, carpenter ants, and other wood destroying insects in Iowa. If any are found, they will need to be treated in those areas for those insects. A well test is another test if the home has a well system instead of public water. A test is done to see if the water is safe to drink or not. Septic inspection and time of transfer is done in Iowa. Any home in Iowa must have a time of transfer done on the septic system, which means the septic system must be inspected within the last 2 years. The septic inspection pumps the system and checks to see if the drain field and septic system is in good working order. All septic inspections must be conducted by an inspector that has been certified by the Iowa DNR. Number 4, encroachments, easements, and any agreements with neighbors. One thing to know before buying a home is if any encroachments or easements are a problem for you as the buyer. I have seen homes that have almost half the garage on the neighbor's lot line, believe it or not. I have seen cement fireplaces partially on the neighbor's lot. I have seen fences on the neighbor's lot. I have seen driveways on the neighbor's lot line, and even part of homes on the neighbor's lot line. Now, there is a code in Iowa that has some protection for the buyer in these instances, but it can get pretty ugly quick if there is a problem that arises, as I have seen this before closing. If the neighbor does not want to sign an agreement to be recorded with the buyer, then deals can fall apart, or sometimes the neighbor with the encroachment wants money. This all needs to be caught before you put in an offer, as you need to know your options. There is a lot of money that can be wasted if you get to the end of the deal and this comes up, which I have heard of more than once. With that said, you also need to know where the easements are. An easement is a right to cross or otherwise use someone else's land for a specified purpose. Common easements are utility easements, sidewalks, shared driveways, sewage runoff pipes, etc., etc. It is important to know where and what easements are in place, as a common practice is a fence being built in a utility easement or drainage easement, and if they need to work on that easement, then they have the right to take down your fence. Also, any shared driveways or any agreements with neighbors for any reason need to be known so you are not in a predicament down the road. This is why it is so vital to have someone like us with the top relocation team in Iowa helping you with your home purchase. Give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email, as we love helping people just like you relocate to this beautiful state. Number 5, look over the home well and negotiate before putting in an offer. For this one, I will use my latest buyer who is moving from out of state and currently has an accepted offer on a home. I showed them a home virtually, and we have a system for showing that is the only way to do it virtually. The only way to get this special treatment, though, is to work with us and get that VIP treatment. Anyways, the story goes on that during the tour, I showed them where there were a few cracks in the foundation, but not anything we believe to not be able to be sealed easily but you never know. And also, we noticed that the upstairs furnace was not operational. We got both of those resolved in the contract instead of waiting until inspections. Now they have the peace of mind that those crucial pieces will be taken care of before getting moving companies set up and all that goes in to moving from state to state or from another country even. Make sure you have a realtor or you yourself know all the things to look for rather than expecting to resolve it at inspection time. Now, if you're watching this and getting value, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps these videos shoot off further and further. And also make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified each and every time we come out with a new video. Number 6, check with your insurance provider and see if any claims were made. This should be all disclosed, but there are disclosures in parts of Iowa that are very vague and don't help you much on the buying side. Calling your insurance provider and checking to see if any claims were made may need to be prompted to the insurance company, as it isn't necessarily a standard practice. With storms and all sorts of insurance claims made by homeowners each year, you want to make sure that the seller put the money they got from the insurance provider into the repairs they got the money for. For example, there was a derecho in Cedar Rapids about 4 years ago, and insulation is a big one that some got money to re-insulate the entire attic, but the homeowner did not replace it at all and took the money. Make sure if there was a recent claim that the work was done so you don't buy a home that should have repairs done that weren't done. Before we get to the last one on this list, we also did a video on if I wanted to live in Iowa in 2024. This is what I do, as it really covers the steps on what to do to prepare to move from one state or country to another. Also, if you're getting value, again, please hit that like button, as we really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you're notified each and every week we come out with a new video on living in Iowa. All right, guys, number 7 and last on this list, structural damage. This may be obvious or not so obvious at all. You would hope all sellers wouldn't try to hide something this important, but it is possible they're trying to hide this from my experience. If they cover up a crack with drywall or attempt to hide this, the last thing you want to do is buy the home and later on find out it has structural damage. That is why it is vital to not only look on the inside, but also look on the outside of the foundation very, very thoroughly. Look for water spots, cracking in the drywall, see if the floors are all uneven. It is a little bit harder on a ranch home, but typically if there's a foundational issue and you're very diligent, you can most of the time find these structural issues. Honestly, it's a lot easier to find structural issues on a 2-story home because on the top floor, the doors may not shut if there's a structural issue, or the trim will be uneven, or both of them. You can fix most things in a home, but sometimes a bad foundation is a deal breaker.